Good evening. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Benson. We are here to report on the work of this year's compensation task force. Our charge this year was to look at teacher retention and recruitment and develop a new compensation model that takes into account market analysis. It's important that we stress that this report only focuses on teacher compensation enhancement. Is there something we can do to improve the salary levels for our teachers? And why teachers? Well, much like the United States Air Force, when faced with losing pilots to the private airlines, it was determined by the task force that a differentiated pay scale for teachers would help with their retention rate. We value all of our school division employees who support the work of our teachers on a daily basis, and we are not leaving them out. But our focus will be on revising our compensation process and aligning it with the marketplace. Our committee members were Theresa Thompson, SCA President, and Kathleen Butler, paraprofessional from A.G. Wright Middle School, and an SCA representative, myself, Rick Fitzgerald, Lisa Boatwright, and Laura Ann Klein from the Human Resources Department, and Lance Wolf, and Brenda O'Brien, and posthumously Patty Sullivan from the Financial Services Department. Also, a number of focus groups have previewed this material, including school administrators, the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Committee, the Stafford Education's Building Representatives, and the School Board's Finance and Budget Advisory Committee. Their comments and suggestions have been incorporated into the report of the committee. And in general, all four groups were supportive of this proposal. First, we needed to determine the retention rates of our teachers and then focus on the reasons for the resignations. To do this, we needed to start with a quality, systematic data approach and not focus as much as we have in the past on the personal stories of individuals. The personal stories have value, but we need to support our position from a solid basis in factual data. We have heard personal stories and blanket statements that numbers of teachers leave us to go to other school divisions for higher pay, or that numbers of teachers who leave us are military spouses who relocate. So we decided to provide the data to support or refute these claims. Jay Green and Marcus Winters, in their report, How Much Are Public School Teachers Paid?, tell us, quote, if we want to have a productive policy discussion about the appropriate level of public school teachers' pay, we have to start with high quality and systematic data, not emotionally compelling personal stories. To collect this data, we used our exit surveys that all employees must complete. We use our applicant tracking software and data collected from that. We also use our position control data and surveys of the school board adopted 9 comparison counties. Why does it matter? Why does compensation matter? I think you will all agree that recruitment and retention of highly qualified teachers are significant to our efforts to remain a highly effective school division. We feel recruitment and retention are impacted significantly by our current compensation numbers. We continue to see high turnover, particularly in the 0 to 5 year experienced teacher groups. As a matter of fact, 55% of our resignations over the last 3 years were the teachers in this 0 to 5 year range. The reason this 0 to 5 year range is important is that we are bringing our best talents and resources to bear when we hire a teacher. When they are here with us for just a short time, we lose out on the institutional knowledge we gain and the continuity provided by their experience. Our investment doesn't have time to mature. FY14 teacher resignation highlights. From July 1 2013 to June 30th, 2014, the fiscal year 2014, we had 250 teachers who left us. 84, or 34%, were in the 0 to 5 year range. 108, or 43%, were in the 6 to 15 year range. By the way, that's 77% in the 0 to 15 year range. 23% were in the 16 years plus range. In this 16 years plus range were 43 teachers who retired, or approximately 17%. In their exit surveys, 67 teachers acknowledged leaving for higher pay, and 9 teachers stated they were moving for military relocations. Other reasons for leaving include family, personal reasons, including health or relocation as well. So this data does tell us that yes, we have a small percentage of teachers who resign for military relocations, and that about 25% of our resignations are for economic reasons. We are not retaining a large number of the teachers we hire and train. Our shrinking applicant pool. Recruitment of highly qualified teachers, recruitment of any teacher, has taken a hit. This slide talks about our applicant pool. These are the number of teachers who have applied for employment with Stafford County Public Schools over the last 4 years. 4 years ago, we had over 3,500 applicants. This year, we had less than one-half that number at 1,795. And there may be a number of reasons for this, including fewer college graduates going into teaching, as well as our salary scale for our teachers. Other areas impacting this shrinking pool is that the recruitment budget for the school division has been reduced. So we're going fewer places to recruit teachers. Every one of our teachers are highly qualified. Basically, that's licensure eligible in the field that they teach. We say highly qualified. It is just that we are now hiring 1 in every 7 teacher applicants as opposed to 1 in every 15 as we did a few years ago. We would prefer greater choice, and at this point I want to take a personal privilege and say, in my opinion, we've hired the best and the brightest of the numbers that we have available to work with. Another problem in recruiting and retaining teachers in Stafford schools involves the new hires rethinking their commitment to Stafford schools. During the summer months, as these teachers rethink their commitment, we have a number of them leave us in July and August. Here are the numbers of newly hired teachers who broke their contracts in the month of July. These are new teachers who accepted our initial offers of employment for the following year, who then broke their contract with us and went elsewhere over the summer. In July 2013, there were 21 newly contracted teachers who broke their contract. In July 2014, there were 49 new vacancies, with 23 of these citing money as reason for leaving. The payroll office helps us track the number of teachers who resign after June 20th. In 2011, that number was 50. Last year, it rose to 115 teachers who resigned after June 20th. That's a 230% increase. And as stated earlier, 192 of the total, or 70%, who resigned after last year are in the 0 to 15 year range. You may think, no problem, just hire new teachers. Hiring highly qualified teachers in July and August is very difficult, particularly the hiring of candidates in critical shortage needs areas. Next, we will take a look at the 0 to 15 year range salaries in the context of our comparison districts. This graph shows the individual salary scales for Stafford County and our 9 comparison counties, along with their calculated median salary. The median salary is indicated by the large blue square. And since most of you are looking over here, this is the large blue square right here, as you can see. Moves up in a particular direction. That's the median salary. This data shows and let me point out, by the way, Stafford is the small blue diamond that you see starting here and moving through the scale on up into this range. This data shows that Stafford County teachers for the first 15 years of experience fall below the median salary of these comparative school divisions. At the 16th year or level, our teacher salaries appear to exceed the median of the market. I think it's important to share at this time as a major point of emphasis, we are in no way suggesting that these salaries, the 16th year and above, be adjusted downward. There are many options to use when trying to determine what our teacher pay scale should look like. Should we pay our teachers at the median? And again, there's that blue box that exposes the median, and compared to Stafford. Should we pay our teachers at the median of the marketplace, or should we reach higher and look possibly at the bottom of a top quartile? Or maybe not stretch so far and look at the top of bottom quartile. Using the median salary of comparative divisions chart, we developed a pay scale for each of these options. But for purposes of our discussion and for purposes of some simplicity this evening, we will refer to only the median as our goal. This is a paradigm shift, a shift in how we think about calculating teachers' salary scales. We are looking at the salary scales and comparing our scales with that of other teachers and other school divisions. So again, teachers below market median. We have approximately 1,992 teachers in Stafford County. Included in that number are 1,271, that's almost two-thirds of our teachers, who fall below market median in the 0 to 15-year range. Of those, 505, or approximately 1/4, are in the 0 to 5-year range. Should we choose to focus on enhancing our teacher salary scales to bring teachers to the market median, we would impact 1,271 teachers. Again, almost two-thirds. To some degree, with those teachers furthest out of the market being the ones most impacted. I'm going to turn this over right now to Theresa, and she's going to take you from here with some additional comment.
I get to explain the numbers. This chart will illustrate to you you have on the chart the salaries for Stafford and then the salaries at each step for those 9 comparative counties. The second to the last column is what the median is of those 9 counties, and then that last column tells you how far away from the mean each one of those steps is.
The mean or the median?
Median, I'm sorry. Want you also to please notice that if you look here, we have years of experience and then the level. What we have done is we have shifted the levels to match years of experience. So at our salary right now, those teachers with 0 to 3 years of experience, they are all right now making the same amount of money because we are in theory 3 steps behind. So what we did, teachers have illustrated to us that it is very important to them to be recognized for their years of experience. And so we have shifted our salary scale in order to do that. If we are able to go through and we do some sort of enhancement, if you notice at the, well, maybe, I'm sorry, it's not on this chart yet, but when we will get to, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one. I'll show you this real quick and then I'll go back. I'm sorry. If you notice where it says there, the adjusted pay scale, I've lost my little red dot.
Move your finger down.
Oh, thank you. I don't have one of these fancy tools in my classroom. If you notice here at the adjusted pay scale, there is a differentiation between the 0, 1, 2, and 3 after we have made that salary enhancement. So along with readjusting our years of experience to meet the level that that teacher would be at, we have recreated that differentiation from level 0 to level 3. If I go back to the other chart, if you take a look at the differences, it is very clear on this chart that at year 15 is where we shift from the staff member being below market or below the median to the staff member being at the median. They're at that year 15. Earlier, Mr. Fitzgerald mentioned that this is kind of what a target could be. You could elect to choose to only target and have as your goal the bottom 25%, that we want to make sure everybody is at that first quartile. If we did that, we would affect the teachers from 0 to about 6 or 7 years of experience. If we decided we didn't want to just be average and have our goal the median, and we wanted to have our goal the bottom of that third quartile, that we were paying more than 75% of the comparison counties, that red line shifts down to about year 30 to 31. So that would affect more teachers on the salary scale. And that's one of the things that, if this plan is adopted, that is one of the things that the board will need to decide as far as what your goal would be. If you want to target the median, if you want to target the first quartile, or if you want to target that third quartile. Using our 9 comparative counties, we developed this spreadsheet that has all the levels and years of experience and the pay scale at point for each division. Now, this is base salary only. We did not incorporate any of the supplements that teachers received for master's degrees, etc. We really found that for right now, we're kind of in line with those supplements, with the master supplements and that sort of thing. The VRS retirement pass along, some divisions have done all of it in the first year, and others are doing 1 year at a time like we are. And we also did not consider the number of assigned days in the contract. They vary across each county. We lessen the impact of these variants because of the structure of the model we have developed. For demonstration purposes, our example takes into consideration a projected $1 million to be applied to enhance our teacher salary scales. The mathematical model behind this example takes into consideration the size of the gap and the number of individuals on that level in the organization, which allows us to apply a weighted distribution of available funds. Our moving forward with this model is not limited by the need to have a certain level of funding available, but rather can we apply those funds available to us across the model. If we had $1 million available, salaries for teachers with 15 years of experience or less would see some level of salary enhancement, as illustrated by this chart. For example, if you take a teacher at 4 years of experience, they're presently making $38,719. If we did this salary enhancement using these formulas, that teacher at 4 years of experience would then be making $39,788. This would impact 171 current teachers on this level alone. Each subsequent year, this analysis would have to be conducted. For example, if we go back to that 4-year teacher, and we did the salary enhancement, and they're now making $39,788. Next year, that teacher would have 5 years of experience. So that $39,788 moves down to the level 5 for the 5 years of experience. That amount is then compared again with the 9 counties, what they're paying their teachers with 5 years of experience, and that market analysis is done again. So this model will have that market analysis attached to it every year. The task force has the following recommendations. First, a cost of living adjustment for all employees across all job classifications. Second, enhance the salary scale for teachers using the process outlined in their example to bring them into the market and close the gap on the median salary. There would be no decrease in teacher salaries for those teachers above 15 years of experience. We have to be able to say this is a good way for us to do business moving forward. We have not been able to sustain the current 2.45% step model. This model allows us to take whatever funding is available and apply it to the goal of enhancing teacher salaries. Our example shows what would happen with $1 million. This model will work based on any amount of dollars applied. Our current model focuses on how far behind we are. This model is more transparent. To bring all the teachers who are below the median in the market up to the median in 1 year would take approximately $4.5 million. Third, each year an annual market survey of the comparison districts must be conducted to determine the median salary for our teachers. A new analysis of the market will occur each year, resulting in new recommendations for cost of living and salary scale comparison increases. And in the future, as we close in on the median salary, we could adjust our market survey to the top quartile. We don't wish to be average, but acknowledge that we must start somewhere. We do wish to expand our market comparison strategies to other employee groups in the future, but for now, our focus is only on our teachers. Questions?
Seeley.
It's a lot to digest.
Well, I will want to study it, and I can appreciate, probably can appreciate the amount of hours and suffering that went into dealing with all those numbers. But I do have a question, and that's with respect to the VRS contribution that the various districts are made. Was that factored in? Because just knowing Spotsylvania several years ago made the decision to go ahead and fund the whole 5% employer contribution, or they increased the salaries by 5%, and Stafford, on the other hand, has done 1% per year, and I think we've done 3%, and we've got 2 more years to go. Was that factored into this analysis? Because for the next 2 years, we are going to be required to increase everybody by the 1% per year to accommodate that. So was that addressed
We did
in the comparison groups?
We did chart each of the school districts and how much they did participate in the VRS over up to current period. And so that was taken in consideration. We felt like the numbers represented, for each of their current pay scales, represented a mark that was obtainable and was in sufficient distance from the median that they would actually blend, if that's a concept that can be accepted. It's like successive approximations to the mean, a concept that is I think valued in statistics. That with enough data, we basically average out to where those differences would not be considered significant from the perspective of the committee. And I don't know if that answers your question. But,
I think the answer is no, they weren't adjusted for the difference that the different school districts. Is that the answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know that, because I know I try to explain that to people. When you look at Spotsylvania salaries, they're going to be somewhat higher because they've already made that contribution, and as every year that goes by, it's a smaller amount, but still, I mean, as of today, it's still 2%. So hypothetically, if we're really going to be, comparing the apples to apples, I think that would be something that I would want to look into, the contribution.
So the thing is, Ms. Healy, that we're so far off of the median that by the time we get close, because this is not something we're going to close in a single year, the divisions will have passed on all of that VRS cost. And because we're going to do a market analysis every year, those numbers are going to change for us. So, we're not going to get close, I don't think, in the first cycle, but we can make progress in the first cycle. The key is that we reassess on an annual basis, and then some of the differences that are out there in these markets become less of an impact for us because it'll all get passed on. The other thing that Mr. Fitzgerald is speaking to is that we're not targeting a specific school division salary or scale. We're looking at the median of the market as a whole. So on some levels it's one division, on other levels it's a different division because of the variance.
Any other questions, Ms. Sagan?
I have two. When does this market survey occur in relation to the budget preparation? Are we going to do that during, before?
Well, the good news is that we can actually begin that in September and October for the forthcoming budget. That typically begins in the January-February timeframe for final adoption in that following May month. And that's because we're basically working on the current year's budget as our base.
Gotcha.
And for each school division, those are typically posted on their websites, just as ours is, and we can access those early on in the school year.
Jump in with a quick
So this year's cycle would be the data that the board just reviewed.
So we would be looking at this year's salary, and really we wouldn't be paying attention to our surrounding jurisdictions and what they might be doing in terms of teacher compensation that current year. So wouldn't we run the risk of being a year behind consistently?
You're going to be, but that is also one of the reasons why that difference in whether or not they've done all 5% for the VRS or they're at 3% like we are kind of washes out too, because when we looked at these market comparisons for our salaries for next year, we're using the salaries that these systems are paying their teachers right now.
We're always going to be a year behind.
Can I finish my second question?
Sure, go ahead.
The colleges that we've reached out to, have we looked at how they're trending as far as their teachers? I guess what I'm trying to say is, have they seen a decrease in the graduates that are pursuing teaching degrees? I guess I'm trying to go back to the beginning of the presentation, trying to figure out why we're not getting that pool.
Those numbers are not unique to Stafford in terms of the number of graduates from the state universities that have education programs or nationally. The trend is national. We are seeing that as an effect. So no, and I think we shared that. There are other factors, of course, that could come into play, but unfortunately, that is a trend nationally as well.
That's not good. Thank you.
Mr. Costner, did you have a question?
Yes. No, I just have a comment. This is great work. I mean, this is the kind of work, when I came on this board a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I thought would be simple, but I guess it's not simple. And I just like to thank Dr. Benson, the SCA, and you all for adopting a rational pay scale, a sliding pay scale, and the government and the military has done a sliding pay scale too. The Air Force, the Army has done it, where they target, and this is perfect. The FICA. We do. You're right, Mrs. Kibbe. We do have 2% more, and I think I looked at it and it was about $800 more. So if 2% more would increase about $1,600, but we are so far off of that 0 to 15 mark, at least that 0 to 11 mark, that it's really not. It's really going to be a wash, I believe. And the timing is important, as Mr. Hirons and Ms. Egan said, about trying to getting the best data we can. As we move forward. But, once we get that year's data, we just transfer it, and if it's 500,000, if it's $1 million, if it's, 4 million, and we fix the whole system, that's fixing it to that quartile, whether it's that top quartile, that bottom quartile, or we fix the median line, and then we can start moving up or down. And hopefully we'll see increases in recruitment and possibly more teachers staying with us longer. And I think that's important because there is a loss, and there was an identified amount of money that we tag on a teacher with 5 years, and it's a substantial amount of money in training and accreditation. So when you lose those teachers at 0 to 5, it is not a good thing for the organization. So good job. I'm really pleased with this, and I hope we'll move forward with it.
I did have one comment and concern, and it's not the one that I brought to your attention before. Well, that's just between you and I. But as you were presenting this, it occurs to me that if the market is changing, it's a dynamic target, and if the market increases significantly and we don't make enough of a contribution into this model, we could go backwards instead of forwards. So I think that we have to watch the market. It occurs to me that we have to watch the market very carefully each year as we're projecting how much money we're going to put into this model. Because if the overall market increases by 2 to 5%, and we only put enough money to bring our folks up another 1%, we've lost ground instead of gaining ground.
And the way this has been formulated, I've got to commend Lance Wolf in particular and his shop. They have created a formulaic system that allows us to take any amount. So whatever that adjustment is, differential is that we identify in September and October, we can wait as late as May to adjust this.
Because we've really got to watch what
to
that
make those
market's doing.
adjustments if need
Am I
be.
making sense, Lance?
Yes, you are.
Okay, all right.
Am I right? Wait as late as May, June?
Well, because you're not targeting a specific dollar amount.
No,
You're focusing on what funding is available and the maximum or optimal amount of funding that
Exactly.
you can apply to.
Unless we bring ourselves to the market right now and stay in pace with them, we could lose ground in this analysis.
It's also the reason why we said it needs to be done in conjunction with COLAs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ms. Healy?
Well, I go back to this VRS, but only because I don't want to shortchange our employees in that category that we're targeting. Because if we're going to do the 1%, that's across the board. So that increases everybody, you know, the folks at the top and the folks at the bottom. And I think we somehow need to take that into consideration if we do have a pot of money that we're going to put in, that would be independent of the contribution that we're already going to make. Because I think, you know, I mean, I don't want to dilute this contribution by the VRS, which really is not going to the employee. It's just going, you know, it's a pass-through. So I think it's important that we consider that when we're putting this additional, assuming that we're going to be able to find the money, which I'm hoping our finance and budget and our 3-on-3 and, you know, can go over and plead our case for, you know, maybe even a proposal. And there can't be any promises. We can only do 1 year at a time. But, you know, we should come up with a plan. But I don't want to dilute it by what we're going to be putting in for the VRS, because on paper that's part of the salary, but we all know it's not anything that anybody takes home. So that's why I was asking about that. So if we can somehow factor that in, that any additional would be
It's very possible.
on top of the other, because it's not really a true salary increase if it's just coming in and going out. And we all know not only does it go out, it goes out with something else because they're paying FICA and some other taxes on top of it. So
That was really what our target was when we said as far as a cost of living adjustment. That cost of living adjustment in our minds does not include the 1% VRS.
No,
We're
and-
talking the 1% VRS that we have to do, or you have to
Right.
do, plus a COLA for everybody, and then above that, whatever you can
Okay.
put into for that enhancement.
okay, because I was just looking at the salaries and looking at that as potentially the target, and I don't want to
it'll be three.
I want them to truly get a pay increase and not just a pass-through that actually costs them a few dollars.
At least for the next 2 years till we get caught up,
Right.
right?
No, and that is our intention, and that's the way that we have looked at the model. We've tried to separate those three items.
Okay, because I didn't see that up there.
So, so as a part of when we get to the point of bringing the board superintendent's funding request, my intention is that those would be separate things, so that we would be able to show the board, what is that 1% pass on. If we are in a position to be able to give a COLA, this is what we are recommending in terms of COLA, and then the scale enhancement would be a separate item, so that it would go directly to scale and not be offset by VRS costs.
Madam Chair? I do like the model. I like the work that's been done. I'm a little concerned about implementing it and how rapidly we can implement it because it's going to be a cost. It's going to be a cost to us, and where are we going to find the funds? Our FAB's working with it, and our 3-on-3 is working with the board of supervisors to try to find additional funding, and I know Dr. Benson, I trust Dr. Benson is going to bring us a budget that's going to have something in it that's going to help us along the way. So that's why I'm kind of posing to you, Dr. Benson, how are we going to get here, and is it enough to say, here's the plan? I would actually kind of like to see a 3-year plan on how we're going to get this fully implemented, and also so our... What?
I don't know how you can do that if you don't know what the market's going to do.
Well, I think you could probably estimate fairly well. But I don't even know if that particularly really matters, because we're still within that, within the market, and the market is the market.
So it will take some time, and it will take sustained effort on our part to, and particularly in years when other divisions are not giving any kind of increase for anybody.
And
so
I want to kind of make sure our teaching corps understands that this is not an immediate fix that they may or may not see overnight. It's something that we are going to have to be committed to as a board to implement to make our salaries better here within the county, which I think, yes, any one of us, that's going to be one of the first things out of our mouths. I worry about class sizes and teacher salaries right now. That's what keeps me up at night. I hope during the budget we can fix it this year, or at least put us on a path to fix it this year. So then my next question, the next thing that kind of keeps me up at night, are salaries for our additional resources, our additional staff. How are we going to take that on either this year or in coming years? Are we going to retain scales as they are now for those folks?
The task force did undertake a review of the classified and administrator salary schedules in where we might be in the future. And we estimate at least a 2-year period for us to be able to come back to the board with a more calculated, more confident recommendation. Going to pay banding is something that's been discussed, and we've reviewed what the county has in terms of their pay bands. We also have a study underway, as you know, for shared services and how that information is going to play out, particularly with the classified and administrative rank and file, may be a factor as well. So we did certainly take that into consideration and plan to actually continue work on that for the remainder of this year and into next and the following.
Well, thank you. This is a start in the right direction. I know last year there was discussion about compensation task force, and I know it was presented about the same time frame. And I remember, having just been elected and not yet up here on the board and seeing that presentation that was given, I was pretty darn concerned that we really didn't come up with anything that was going to help us, and I think it kind of proved out to be the case. And I have confidence that that's not the case here. I think we have something that we can start working with and start implementing, and hopefully make our division that much stronger.
All right, any more questions or comments in relation to the presentation here? Okay, thank you so much. Very, very good information.